Did you want to say anything more about
Nope.
respond to
Nope.
that?
I'm going to be the publishing voice. Karen is the author. I, by trade, am an editor. So that just simply means that I break into a cold sweat if there's no words on the page. And Karen doesn't like words on a page. She likes to start with a blank sheet. So she'll be kind of leading and chatting about, from an author's perspective, the difference, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities in what we refer to as traditional, which we'll refer to as a Thomas Nelson or a Zondervan or a Tyndale, publishers that are have books in your bookstore behind you, and then we'll also talk about self-publishing and the opportunities and the strengths and the weaknesses there. So I'll kind of chime in as we go along. But you all are writers and authors. Karen is a writer and an author. She also has been a publisher, so she gets that side of the table. But she'll be leading the conversation.
And even in my point of view as a writer, as an author, even my view has changed about what I think of traditional publishing, as I've done many times, and self-publishing. So I really wanted to give you some of the ups and not so goods and ins and outs of both sides of that, because you deserve to know that you have choices and that there are going to be times when a traditional house is exactly what you want. And then there are going to be times when that's not the best choice you could make for yourself. So let's start with the, like I started to say, It's Still Possible as HarperCollins, and I love certain things about getting a book through a traditional house. And these are some of the things I appreciate about it. One is that I know my book idea, my book concept, is vetted by a lot of people. It goes to an editorial meeting and that gets discussed and they decide, is this a big enough idea? Is this something that we think we can work with? It goes through that. It goes through a sales meeting and they talk about it and they say, can we get to the bookstores, or can we get out and sell this and make a difference with this? It goes to the marketing team and they say, what's this person's background? What does this book have to offer that we haven't offered so far? What's different about it? What's helpful about it? And I like knowing that if they accepted the book, they are behind it 100%. They are going to do everything they can to make that book successful because they have lots and lots of choices and they can only choose one out of a stack of 100 maybe. And so if they chose that, it's because they believe in it. And so for me, that's an excellent thing. And I appreciate that. And it makes me happy to know that the idea was worthy of their consideration and also of my readers. Because the next thing that's going to happen is that they are going to assign an editor to me. They're going to take my manuscript and they're going to have somebody else review it. And then they're going to have somebody else review it after that. And probably 3 people are going to read it. And they're going to give me suggestions. And they're going to come up with ideas of things that maybe I had not yet thought of, or tweaks, or just sentence structure that needs to be, fixed in some way. And so they help to make it a better book. And I have come to love a good editor. There's nobody better in your camp than that editor, because they are out to make your book wildly successful. They want you to win at this. And so they're not going to allow you to just sit there with something that's pretty good when they know it could be pretty great. And so this is an important thing, and I appreciate that from a traditional publishing house. The next thing for me is that they are going to look at this book and they're going to compare it to everything else that's going to go out on their publishing list that season. They're going to say, how does this title stack up with everything else? We have 10 more books that are going to go out. How can we offer this and make it stand out uniquely on its own? And so that's where they will look at title. They will look at the design. They will look at how the book is laid out. They will look at color palette. They're going to look at, is it a great paper stock? Is it going to appeal to the person who's going to pick it up? So they think of all the stuff that I don't have to think about. As the writer, I like writing. I don't want to have to think about every single detail. So when it goes away to that house, I can trust that they're really going to look at it. And they always come back and say to me, do you like this cover design? They give me choices. They'll say, these are the 3 we're thinking. These are the 2 we like best. And they hope I'll choose one, and I always do. But that's what you do. You get a team to cooperate, and that's extremely helpful. Let's see, what else do I like about it? I guess those are the main things. They
pay for everything.
And they pay for everything. Yeah, that's the other thing I like. They're paying. This is all on their dime. Sometimes they give me an advance. That means they give me something up front that goes against the royalty I will eventually get on a book. I typically do royalty-based books, not work for hire books, and Bruce can share more about what that means if you need help with that. But these are things that to me are good, and I can say, I can just breathe easy. Once I get it off to them and they've approved my manuscript, and then they send it back when they do what we call first pass pages. So once they've set the book up and they've actually typeset it, they will send it back to me and give me a chance to read it again, look at their design, check everything, see if I have any changes. And as long as my changes are reasonable, they'll pay for that. I can't start rewriting. I can't add a couple more, ideas, but I can just look for the minor things that need fixes and take care of them. That's my chance to do it. So I always feel really good about it. And I guess I like knowing, I do like knowing that they also have distribution for that book. They're going to get the book out. They're going to get it out to all the different avenues that they have, and they have many, many more than I have by myself, that's for sure. So these are some of the things that I will say are the pros of getting your book published in a big house. But there are some things that are drawbacks, and these can be just as much worth your consideration. One of the drawbacks is that, and I guess this is actually the biggest drawback all across the board, is that you don't have a lot of control. Once that manuscript is accepted and they've said, great, you don't have control over when it will get published. And usually it's 12 to 18 months, sometimes a little longer, depending on their list. And right now with COVID, a lot of books got moved off of the list that was supposed to go out. And so the contracts that were made and the books that were supposed to go out are getting moved further out than they were originally. That's okay on one hand, but if in your contract it says you cannot write another devotional book, I'm a devotional book writer, and if they've put in my contract, I can't write another book for 1 year until my book has been out for 1 year, the one I just sold them, that could mean a long time. That could mean I'm not making a living. I make a living as a writer, right? This is what I do. So there are some drawbacks in the sense that you cannot always, you don't have control over some of those things. Yes, they give you marketing help, but they give you marketing help typically for about the first 6 weeks. And if you're not one of their A authors, and I would say I've never been an A author on their list because the category I have is not usually an A-list category. But anyway, they tend to give most of their marketing dollars to Max Lucado and big time, big name authors. And then people like us kind of come in next, and we get some help. And with It's Still Possible, the kind of help I got marketing wise, they put a page on my website. They had me write an article for Proverbs 31, which was amazing. It went out to 200 or 300 people, which was great. They had me write another article for Faith Gateway, which is one of their owned blogs and newsletters. I just wrote again another article that's going to come out in a couple of weeks with another group of theirs. So they gave me ways to share it, which was great. They sent me photographs from their photo setting with the book and let me use those on my website. So there's been some interaction, there's been some help that I've gotten to help market the book. But it's never enough, really, because the competition is strong. And these days, as a devotional writer, it's been really tough because Jesus Calling took the air out of everybody's balloon because nobody else could get a book that was going to do that. And so on one hand, it was great for Sarah Young, but not so great for everybody else because your book couldn't stack up, first of all, and your book couldn't have the title Jesus in it forever because that was the only one that was going to be out there that they were going to pay attention to. So these are things that happen as you work with a traditional house. Is there more you want to add?
A couple of good examples of no control is this book here, which is called It's Still Possible. Karen started it with a different title. She started it with 366 Day, so a daily devotional. The publisher came back and said, we are a little bit overdone with daily devotionals. Let's do 100 instead of 366. But if you want to do 366, you can, but we don't want to do it. So a traditional house has the control over the title, and Karen was able to come up with one they did like. They also have control over how long the manuscript will be. In this case, they cut it from 366 to 100. Another good example is this book, which is called Strength for Your Soul. Interesting story here. The original title that Karen wrote, this is a 366. She wrote the whole manuscript based on the title, Take Heart. Okay, you got
Which,
that?
of course, I used that phrase in the book.
All through the book. They accepted the contract, they accepted the proposal with that title. She wrote 100,000 words, 109,000 words that use that title. And then at a marketing meeting, after the manuscript was done, they said, you know, we've got 3 books coming out with the word heart in the title. Would you please change the title? Now, in this case, I think she came up with an even better title, Strength for Your Soul. But it took some time to go back in and fix that. Well,
because I had to edit the book inside, right? To create a Strength for Your Soul kind of deal.
So when you're working with a publisher and you sign the contract, it gives them the right to title the book and to decide how many pages it's going to be and to decide how it's going to be organized. Those are things that can be very helpful. We got a better title with Strength for Your Soul, but also probably it added 2 or 3 months of work that, you know, to go back and review the whole thing. So a publishing relationship is very beneficial. You're dealing with pros, but you have no leverage as the author once you've completed the manuscript. And I've been publishing since 1975. So I don't know how many years that is, but it's a lot. And I've done hundreds and thousands of books probably. I haven't heard too many horror stories like that one where, oh, by the way, let's change the title after the manuscript's done. But the publisher has a right to do it. that you have to be aware of.
I'm going to give you another example.
Oh, that's a good one.
This book, which is called The Heart-Shaped Life, okay, is now a daily devotional journal. I love
Karen,
this.
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
You're-
What do I?
Okay, that's better.
Okay. Anyway, Heart-Shaped Life was a book that I started with the publisher with one devotional, daily devotional. They published it. It was great. And then because they own all the content, right? Copyrighted to me, but they own the content. They do with as they would like. So they took the book and they made a journal, just a guided journal, taking quotes out of my book and creating a guided journal. They had me write a prayer book, which was fine. They took it again and made a promise book, 500 promises. They took it again and made a 3-minute devotion out of it, which was also good. So in a way, this was good because I get royalties on all those books, right? And they did the work. So I'm just saying that sometimes it's good because they'll take your book, and if it's a big idea, they'll keep building that idea. As long as they can sell a nuance of it, they'll keep doing that. And that's good for you. You want that. And so when you self-publish, it's not always as easy to make those kinds of continual transitions. So I just wanted to share that while I'm in the traditional house. Let me see. The other thing that's difficult about traditional houses today is that you have to have this thing we call a platform. You have to be up and running to get this thing marketed. You cannot just be saying, I will have a website. You better have a website, and you better have lots and lots of people visiting your website all the time. You need to have your social media management already created, not something you will do. If you put that in your proposal to them and tell them, I will have this, I will get on Facebook, I will get on Instagram, they'll say, well, we need you to have 6,000 followers on Instagram. We don't want you just starting. So the whole thing for today, which was back when I was at Thomas Nelson as a Bible publisher, they beefed things up in a big time when they started going for platform. And we had to have people who had lots and lots of people already in their camp. I sort of have survived this because I have a track record. I've been publishing for 20 years. I have 100 books. So because I have a sales track record, that's helped me. But if I was starting today as a writer, one of the things I'd be after is some marketing gurus to help me figure out how I can get the word out. How am I going to sell the book? So that is part of the reason that self-publishing might become more of an answer. That's part of the reason people are going to self-publishing. And so do you have any questions about traditional publishing before we go on to self-publishing?
If you're on Zoom, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Deborah.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is this. You say you went the traditional route, but if you go the self-publishing route, but it's with a small company or whatever. But I like what you said when you said you can't tell a publisher, I will have this, I will have that. You gotta have it. Because I have a lot of ideas, but I'm working on my first book of poetry and pieces to ponder. And I don't feel as confident as I would like to feel about that, even though I have been writing poetry and pieces to ponder for a long time. It's like my confidence level is not where I thought it would be. And even though I remember writing as early as elementary school, and then engaging students in writing and adults and
Mhm.
all of that. But there's an edge. I feel edgy, and I don't like feeling like that.
Yeah.
If I'm capable of actually getting this project done, you know, this first published book where everybody said hold in their hand because they asked, Deborah, when are you going to do the book? And been having writings. I have notebooks everywhere. And so it's kind of edgy for me right now.
Mhm.
Tell them about the manuscripts under the bed.
Oh, yeah, all that, everything.
Oh, and there she is. There's a lovely bed behind you. I was speaking at a writing conference at one point, and there was a woman in our group who raised her hand and told me that she had these amazing manuscripts. And I said, what have you done with them? And she said, oh, well, they're all under my bed. How many publishers do you think will come and crawl under your bed to get them? And she said, I encouraged her, look, the only thing you can do is start, Deborah. The only thing you can do is start putting it out there because you don't know how it'll go. I started out writing poetry a long time ago, and that's what got me into the greeting card industry. And I published 15,000 greeting cards. It was something that was dear to my heart, something I wanted to do. And I took something that was just kind of natural for me to do and learned even more by joining an industry that used what I could do and helped me go there. And in fact, my greeting card writing life is really what got me into my devotional book life, because I learned how to say a lot in a short space. You write a greeting card, you have to say something meaningful. You have to make somebody believe they would have written that themselves. And the way you know that is because they buy it. They pick it up because they like the artwork. They buy it because they like what it said. And so I learned that, and I learned about situations. You write poetry, poetry is about your heart. Poetry is about situations in life, and you start having perspective and a bird's eye view, if you will, of people in all different ways. And when you do greeting cards, I just have to say, I had to learn to write every kind of card for every situation, graduations and funerals and babies and weddings and Valentine's Day and you name it. You had to learn how to do it, and you had to put yourself in the shoes of the person you were writing that card for. So I encourage you about poetry. Actually, poetry is rising in favor at the moment. It is hard for publishers, traditional houses to take poetry on because they can't sell it. They do not have enough readers to make that a viable alternative. But here's one little secret, at least my secret. I learned that I could add a poem, or sometimes more than one, if I wrote a gift book. If I took a theme and I wrote a gift book, then I was able to sell some of those. So you could take your poems about forgiveness or love or life, all those things, and find another avenue. I'm just saying, it'll give you more confidence.
Another thing that I would throw out, and this is a good opportunity to make this.
We can't hear you.
Another opportunity that I would put out
Yep.
is, you can't hear me at all?
We just barely.
It's an echo. Yeah, let me.
Mute yourself. If you're on Zoom, mute yourself. Okay. So go ahead and talk, Bruce.
Oh, you want?
Deborah
Okay.
needs to do that.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Deborah, is
No, we're still not. Can you sit closer to the? Sometimes we can hear you great, and then other times it's really low.
okay.
Okay, we got it.
There's a spot.
There's a spot, I guess.
Yeah.
Poetry is hard to publish because it's hard to sell. What did we just hear a moment ago? Devotions is a really hot category. Why is it a hot category? Because people read them and then they want to buy another one because they do devotions. So Deborah, here's my little suggestion for you. You just mentioned a brilliant title. Brilliant. Okay? The title for your book is Pieces to Ponder.
Mm.
Don't use the word poetry.
Okay. Oh, pieces to
No, this is not a book of poetry. This is a book titled Pieces to Ponder, Devotional Thoughts and Reflections.
Guess what? You're not even going under you. This is amazing because the company I'm working with, and the ladies say that same word, reflections.
Yeah.
And we
So
say make it pieces to ponder because that's
it.
the title that's been in me forever. And
it's a great title. It's a great title. So,
wow.
and this would be an example of the help that is available. You go to Michael or the store manager or the clerks. Hey, I'm kicking this idea around. Got this title. It's a book of poetry. Watch their face.
Whoa. Okay. 'Cause it's different. It's about life stuff too. Pieces
Right.
to ponder.
Right. So,
yes.
So talk to bookstore managers and clerks. What do you think about this? Does this make sense? It's hard to get good information from people who know about publishing because there's just not that many of us.
Okay.
But if you can seek out a local bookstore, they know a lot about publishing and they'll be able to help you. So
thank you.
That's
encouraging. That is encouraging what you both shared, really. I'm like on the edge because I have so many writings, so much stuff.
Yep.
And it's just in binders and paper. It's like, and I finally concised enough of it where it could be, with the beginning of the first book. Right. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Well, let's look at the changes in publishing today and go to self-publishing so that we can talk a little more about that. In the recent, just in the last 2 years, I have published for the first time under my own imprint 2 books. And I did it because I chose a topic that I knew wouldn't probably work for a big house. But yet it was important. I thought it was important. And because I believed in my topic, because I believed it was worth doing, and I happen to live with a publisher. Okay, I shouldn't say that. But because I believed in it, I decided I'm going to try this for the first time. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And so I published these 2 books called Got 10 Minutes for God. And my premise, my idea was simply that I have been a devotional book writer for a long time. I've written many of those books. I love those books. I read those books. I am a practitioner. I do morning devotions every day. It's part of my lifestyle. But I think, why is it that people might not be comfortable doing morning devotions? Well, maybe it's because they just don't know how. Maybe because nobody's ever actually helped them understand why it could work, why it could be meaningful to them. So I decided to write these 2 books. One is just Got 10 Minutes for God, and it's kind of a little instructional. It gives you an overview about what it means to do devotions, how you can do devotions, scriptures that might be helpful when you do devotions, different ways to understand Bible translations, different ways to do this. And then there's 7 of these 10 minutes. I mean, the key was you can do this in 10 minutes. And one of the things that I did in my research is I talked to some women, and these were women I knew were Bible students, right? I knew there were people who studied the Bible. And so I said to them, if I did a course or I wrote a book on doing devotions, how many of you do devotions now? And they all started immediately, they started telling me, well, I used to, but I don't have any time now. I can't do it for this reason. Or I like it, but I just don't know what I'm doing. Or, I got so much to do in the morning. There's just no way I can do it. I'm sure God understands. So they gave me all their excuses. So one of my chapters was the top 10 reasons not to do devotions. Because I thought, okay, we all have these reasons, and albeit good ones, but are they really so good that you want to miss 10 minutes with the guy who created you, the one who sees you, knows you, loves you, wants to be with you, all that stuff. So anyway, I decided to write this book. And then I wrote an additional book, 30 devotions, 10-minute long, because I wanted people to take the challenge. If you do it every day for 30 days, I believe you'll do it because it'll get in your blood. And Bruce, who is a longtime practitioner of doing devotions and writing in his journal and all those things, he did it. He took the book and he did them. And tell them what your experience was.
The thing I liked about it, which I hadn't seen in other devotions, is that there were 3 really good questions at the end of each 10-minute talk. 3 10-minute, and there seems to be a place somewhere on the screen that works.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Anyway, I liked it because I hadn't seen the questions that were really reflective on the subject, and I had space to write in the book. I read 8 or 10 daily devotions a day, 4 or 5 of them of Karen's and Spurgeon and Oswald Chambers and others. But this was really good. This is really good. Why was it a good book for Karen to publish herself rather than take to one of her publishers? And the answer is it's a very niche market. Okay, it's a very small market. And in terms of the number of books that sell per title, it's a niche market. And then because we're not talking about people who do devotions, we're talking about people who don't do devotions, who might be interested in doing it. Well, Karen is the perfect person to get people excited about doing devotions. She makes a living at it. She's got lots of books about it. So she's got examples she can share. She can speak on it. She can do podcasts. She can do interviews. She can do blogs. She can do LinkedIn pieces. So she has the ability to get to the people who look to her for that information. I'm going to buy a microphone for this computer. I don't have the problem on my computer here. This is Karen. But so this was a great book for Karen to publish herself, because everything she speaks on works with this book. And so far she's doing very nicely with it. We have a 3rd one coming out. So why don't you skip, because we've got a time issue. Why don't we skip to what are the good things about self-publishing and what are the challenges?
Okay. Some of the good things are that you can take your expertise and get it out in front of people and share it with them. And that you have the background to do it. So I would say if you're going to self-publish, you want to be the person. You want to be a go-to person for that topic. Okay, it's important that you do that. You have control now. As Bruce always says, the big thing in self-publishing is the word self, which means you have control over everything because you're going to do everything. There's no team. There's you. There's you to get that manuscript right. There's you not to give that manuscript to your friend who's a teacher, to your mother, to your sister. It is not to give that manuscript to somebody that just says, oh, I'd love to help you. It is to get that manuscript to a professional editor. And you have to do that, and you have to pay for that. And it is the best expense, I'm going to tell you, because if your book is not grammatically right, if your book doesn't flow well, if it is not set up right, you don't know because you're the person who put it together and you love it.
And so does your mother.
And so I think, because I put it together, that it is okay the way it is, but I'm telling you, it may not be okay the way it is. And unless you get a professional to help you, it's not going to work. You may sell some, but you won't be very proud of what your outcome is. So yes, you have control over that manuscript. You have control over the design, which you will pay for. You have control over the cover, which you will pay for. You have control over how it looks and all the aspects of it. And you will buy the ISBN number to help sell it. You'll pay for that too. There's all the pieces of it that are good because they're now in your control. But when you get that first pass page, the first time it's been set, and then you read it again, Bruce and I have done, Bruce does a lot of packaging, so he helps a lot of people do self-publishing. And we just had a client, I won't give any names, but we just had a client that literally put us through 12 or 13 different first pass pages because they changed their mind every time. And because it was self-published, they're just going to keep paying for it. And we tried to tell them, even as in a traditional house, I get one shot at changing it, not 12 shots at changing it. And every time that has to go back to the designer to get the text to be reflowed. Every time it has to be tweaked and gone over and reviewed. And then another proofer has to come back and proof it again. And I think they did how many covers? 8 or 10 covers. And they chose the covers themselves, right? We didn't choose them, they chose them. But because they kept going on and on and on, it took forever to get their book out.
And when we finally got it done, the cover didn't fit because they had added an extra 10 pages and we had designed the cover. This is called spine, right? See that spine there? Well, the spine is what wraps around the pages. Well, if you add pages, you're adding width on the spine, and we had to redo the cover, which cost them another $150. So when we talk about self-publishing, you are the customer. The customer is always right, as long as they want to keep paying for being wrong. And so as an author, there's so many exciting things about self-publishing. One thing that's really great, and we've had this happen, is you publish the book, and then someone says who read it, wow, that was really helpful. I wish you had done so-and-so. I wish you had covered such and such. You say, no problemo. You add another few pages. Watch how big the spine is. You add a few more pages. And in a few days, you can turn that around and have the updated edition published. If you're with HarperCollins and you say, hey, I'd like to add so-and-so to this chapter, they'll say, thanks, but no thanks. And you're out. So self-publishing, as long as you're working, and one of the services that we provide, and I've told Tina that I'd be happy to talk with any of you for a free 30 minutes to go over these things. But one of the services that we provide is to point authors to editors, to copy editors, to book designers. It's an art. Book design, cover design is an art. You all have seen lousy books. You can pick them out of a stack. The covers don't work. You can't read the type, the color, or the messaging is wrong. The type is too small in the back. You can't even read it because they had so many things they wanted to say. So you want to work with people who know what they're doing, even when you are doing it yourself. Mm. And those people are out there and they're happy to work with you at a very reasonable price. But you've got to, if you're going to take the time to write a great book, take the time to publish a great book too. And you do that by hooking up with people like myself, and there's others who can help get you together with people who can do that editing, who can do that interior design. And by interior design, I mean, you know, the little things like putting a little clock and changing the font on the page so it's, and laying it out so it's an inviting page to read. Those are really important things to consider.
Okay, any questions so far about the self-publishing side?
Okay, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
I do have a question. My name is Victor Hess.
Okay, wait.
Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, my question is on the self-publishing, then it seems like distribution might be something that needs to be tackled with more than just what an independent author can handle.
Yeah, correct. And the good news is that a few things have happened in the last 18 months that have made distribution for self-published books a little bit easier. The first thing is, because bookstores had such a challenge during 2020, Amazon really picked up a lot of slack. The good news is that print books sold 20% more copies in March of 2021 than they did in 2020. And March was before the stores had to shut down. Book sales are going crazy. And about 50 or 60% of those sales, because of the pandemic issues, are flowing through Amazon. Thomas Nelson sells about 50% of its copies through Amazon. Victor, you can sell your books through Amazon the same way Thomas Nelson does. So any self-published author can work with Amazon, they're the best, can work with Amazon for distribution today, and more people are getting excited about their bookstores opening again, but a lot of people are going to still be buying online, either for safety protocol, COVID protocols, or the stores aren't there. You know, they're not as, a lot of stores unfortunately had to close. So distribution, another exciting thing that's happening, and your store that you're in, he may be willing, a lot of bookstores do, particularly independents, he may be willing to carry your book on what we call consignment, which means that you print the books yourself, and I'll explain how you do that. You print the books yourself, you put them in his store, and then he pays you when he sells them. So you're consigning them. And bookstores are getting more and more open to working with local authors. Why? Because Victor, you're going to have your friends and your family going into that store. Well, what else is going to happen when they go in that store? They're going to walk through the card aisle. They're going to buy a greeting card. Hey, they might be ready for a new Bible. So the bookstore people know if they can get bodies in their store, they're going to sell not just your book, but maybe other books. So distribution through bookstores is great, Christian bookstores. And then also 6 months ago, Barnes & Noble was purchased by a new company, and they changed their purchasing program. The local Barnes & Noble manager can now order books for their own store, which means Victor, Ingrid, Deborah, Tina, the whole crowd there, you want to go into your Christian bookstores and you want to know who those managers are. And you want to see if they're open to carrying your book. You can now do that in your Barnes & Noble store too. So you've got retail opportunities with personal connections, and you've got not just Barnes & Noble, but you've got Amazon and Christian book distributors, the online sellers. So the distribution for self-published books is a lot easier than it used to be.
I would also suggest that if you're thinking of self-publishing, that you make a list of your target audience. You make a list of the people that you believe want to buy your book. Because if you know who those people are, you can market to them. And they may not be Barnes & Noble people. They may not even, be Amazon people. I don't know. But if we have one friend who's a pastor. He's sold thousands of books through his whole ministry group.
Yeah.
So you need to look at those people that are potential affiliates, those people that will support what you're doing, and give them a free copy of that book and say, would you share this with 50 other people, with 5 other people? Would you help me get the word out? And that's one of the best things you can do for yourself.
When you're working with, as a self-published author, the biggest mistake you can make is to work with a self-publishing company, because they will sell you a service, but they won't help you sell your books. And they will charge you through the nose for your fees. So when you hear companies like Westbow, or you hear companies like Ex Libris or iUniverse or Author House, those companies are in the business of selling you a service that you can get yourself by working directly with the professional editors and designers that we can put you in touch with. And you won't spend a quarter of what you're spending, of what these other companies are providing. So that's number one. Number two, there's no reason to not work with Amazon. They are so easy to work with. I can help you, but once I've helped you, you won't need my help again. They'll help you with once you've got your book edited, they'll help you get it up on their site. Once it's on your site, you can drive people to it. And the most important thing is that you can buy books when you publish your book on the Amazon site. You can buy them at the actual cost. You can buy them at cost. This book cost about $2 when Karen buys it, and she sells it for 10. Her royalty is $8. $8. This book, if Nelson published it, she would have to pay, if it was $12, she could buy it for maybe 60%. So she would have to pay $4, $5 for it, maybe $6. If they sell it, they're going to pay a royalty of about 60 cents. 60 cents. So on the self-publishing side, if you can get people excited about your book, you have to say, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a free book if you'll post a 5-star review. You need 10 5-star reviews on Amazon to become part of their marketing machine. As soon as you have 10, only 10. If you have 50, they're going to go nuts promoting your book, and it's not going to cost you anything. So 5-star reviews on Amazon. Buy 10 copies and give them away. Don't give them away to your cousin. Give them away to your pastor who speaks with 200 people every Sunday. If you've got a small group, get that small group and say, hey, how many of you got friends that could use my book? If there's 10 people in that group and each one of them has 3 friends, that's possibly 30 copies. You see what starts happening? It gets thrilling. And if you're selling them and making $8 a book instead of 60, you don't have to go very far to start making some nice money. Your break even, if you do a book on Amazon and you pay $600 or $700 for a cover, and you will say a few $100s for editing, your break even is going to be about 300 copies, 250 to 300 copies. So I encourage you to consider self-publishing, but don't do it alone. Work with people who know what they're doing.